What happens when two of country music's biggest stars sit down for what's meant to be a friendly chat? But instead, it explodes into one of the most shocking confrontations daytime TV has ever seen. That's exactly what happened when Jason Aldean joined the Kelly Clarkson show. What began as a lighthearted interview quickly unraveled into a heated debate that left Kelly speechless, the studio tense and Jason storming off the set. At first, everything felt easy and comfortable. Kelly greeted Jason with her usual warmth, the audience cheered, and he took his seat with that trademark smile of his. They started off talking about his latest tour, how he manages long stretches on the road, balancing work and family, and what keeps him connected to his fans. Jason was his usual charming self, telling funny stories, laughing with the crowd, and keeping the mood light. But then, Kelly shifted gears. "So, Jason," she said, leaning forward, "your music has always connected with a certain audience, and you've been vocal about your values. How do you handle criticism from people who don't share those same values?" Jason's expression changed, still calm but more guarded. "Well, Kelly," he replied, "if you're in this business long enough, you realize not everyone's going to like you or agree with you, and that's fine. I make music for the people who do connect with it. I'm not trying to be everything to everyone." Kelly nodded, but her tone carried a sharper edge. "Sure," she said. "But don't you think that as someone with such a big platform, there's a responsibility to consider how your message affects different communities? Some people have said that your recent songs feel divisive." The air in the studio thickened. Jason's jaw tightened. "Divisive how?" he asked. Kelly didn't hesitate. "There are people who feel like your newer work plays into certain stereotypes or pushes an us versus them mentality. I'm not saying that's your intention, but perception matters, doesn't it?" Jason sat back in his chair. "Kelly, I think you're reading too much into it. I write about real life, the kind of people and places I know. If that makes some folks uncomfortable, maybe that says more about them than it does about me." Kelly kept her smile, but her eyes sharpened. "But Jason, small-town America isn't one thing. There are Black families, Latino families, LGBTQ people living there too. When your songs paint just one version of small-town life, aren't you erasing the rest?" The tension was impossible to ignore now. Jason leaned forward, his voice firmer. "I'm not erasing anyone, Kelly. I'm sharing my story, my experience. That's what artists do. Nobody accuses you of erasing people when you sing about your own life." "That's different," Kelly shot back, her tone rising. "I don't wrap my experiences in imagery that's been used to exclude people. You know what certain symbols and phrases mean to different communities, Jason." Jason's voice hardened. "What I know is that I'm being lectured on national television about my own songs by someone who clearly came in with an agenda." Kelly didn't flinch. "It's not an agenda to ask you to think critically about your influence. You've got millions of fans who listen to every word you say. Isn't it worth considering how your message impacts people?" Jason leaned in, his voice rising. "You want to talk about division? How about the division that happens when you tell half the country their values are wrong? How about that kind of division, Kelly?" The audience sat frozen. Producers were likely panicking behind the scenes, but Kelly held her ground. "Nobody's saying your way of life is wrong, Jason. But when your message starts making other people feel unwelcome or unsafe, yes, that needs to be talked about." Jason let out a dry laugh. "That's funny, Kelly. When you sing about empowerment, everyone celebrates it. But when I sing about pride and where I'm from, suddenly it's a problem. That's not equality, that's picking and choosing whose voice gets heard." "That's not fair," Kelly said, frustration creeping in. "My songs don't come at the expense of others. There's a difference between pride and exclusion." Jason's face was flushed now. "I'm not excluding anyone. I celebrate my roots, my people, my life. If that offends you, that's your problem, not mine." Kelly took a breath, clearly trying to calm the storm. "Jason, I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking if you've ever thought about how your words and imagery might make others feel unwelcome or unsafe." Jason stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Unsafe?" he repeated, shaking his head. "I think this conversation's over." And with that, he walked off set, leaving Kelly, the audience, and the cameras frozen in stunned silence. Jason shifted in his seat, visibly tense. "Unsafe from what? From a song?" he asked, his tone sharp with disbelief. "Are you seriously telling me that my music makes people unsafe?" Kelly took a careful breath before responding, her voice calm but firm. I'm saying that words and images have power. They can include people or push them away. They can make people feel seen, or make them feel like they don't belong. And when you have as much influence as you do, those choices matter. Jason shook his head, laughing bitterly. This is unbelievable. I came here thinking we were going to have an honest conversation about music, about the tour, about something real. Instead, I'm getting a lecture about how I should censor my art to fit your version of what's acceptable. They're not my standards, Jason, Kelly replied, her voice tightening. They're basic human decency and inclusion. That was the breaking point. Jason stood up abruptly, his microphone still clipped to his shirt. You know what, Kelly? I don't need to sit here and be told that what I do, what I believe, or what I represent is somehow indecent. I respect you as an artist, but this is ambush journalism disguised as an interview. The audience gasped. Kelly rose to her feet, matching his height. Jason, come on, sit down. We can talk about this like adults. Adults don't ambush each other on live TV, Jason snapped, his voice tight with anger. Adults don't invite someone on their show just to tear them down in front of an audience. I'm not tearing you down, Kelly shot back, her tone rising to match his. I'm asking you to think beyond your bubble, to consider perspectives that aren't your own. Is that really so offensive to you? What's offensive? Jason countered, pointing at her. Is being told that my perspective doesn't matter. That the people I represent don't matter unless we conform to your idea of what's right. Kelly's face flushed red. That is not what I said, and you know it. You're twisting my words because you don't want to face the criticism. Jason laughed without humor. This isn't criticism, Kelly. This is a hit job. The crew froze. Cameras kept rolling as tension crackled through the air. Offstage, producers were frantically signaling to cut, but neither Kelly nor Jason seemed to notice. A hit job? Kelly repeated incredulously. Jason, I asked you questions people have been asking for months. If you can't handle that, if you can't defend your own artistic choices without blowing up, then maybe that says something. Jason clenched his fists. You want a defense? Fine. I defend my right to make music that speaks to my life, my community, and the people who understand where I'm coming from. I don't owe you or anyone else an explanation for that. Nobody's asking you to owe anyone anything, Kelly replied sharply. But you put your art into the world, Jason. You profit from it. You build your career on it. And when people raise legitimate concerns about the message it sends, you don't get to hide behind artistic freedom and act like you're being persecuted. Jason's voice rose again. You're the one who brought me here just to grill me about my values and my lyrics, and now you're trying to make me the problem because I won't apologize for being who I am. Kelly crossed her arms. That's exactly it. You keep making this about you instead of your work. This isn't personal, it's about impact. Those are two different things, are they? Jason challenged. Because if you say my work is problematic, you're saying I'm problematic. My music comes from who I am, what I believe, and how I see the world. If you've got an issue with my songs, you've got an issue with me. Kelly shook her head. That's a cop-out and you know it. Artists evolve, they grow. They challenge their own assumptions. You're choosing not to. You're treating every bit of feedback like a personal attack. Jason stepped closer, his voice rising. Because that's exactly what this is, a personal attack. You want me to sit here and admit that something's wrong with me, my music and my fans? Well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to betray the people who've supported me from day one, just to make you feel better about your own biases. The audience was silent now. Some viewers exchanged glances, half of them uncomfortable, the other half nodding in agreement. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a full-blown ideological battle happening in real time. Kelly's voice dropped to a controlled, quiet tone that was somehow even sharper. My biases? Jason, I grew up in Texas. I know small-town life. I know country music inside and out. Don't stand there and act like I'm some coastal elite who doesn't understand your world. I do. The difference is I chose to grow beyond it. Jason threw up his hands in exasperation. Oh, here we go. So because you decided to change, everyone else has to change too? Because you evolved, anyone who didn't evolve exactly like you is suddenly backward? That's arrogant, Kelly. Kelly's eyes flared. It's not arrogance to expect people to think critically about their impact. It's not arrogance to ask someone with your influence to consider how their words might make others feel excluded. That's not arrogance, that's empathy. That's growth. Jason took a step back, shaking his head. And what you call growth, I call losing touch with where you came from. Forgetting the people who made you. Deciding that the values you grew up with aren't good enough anymore because they don't fit whatever's trending in LA or New York. Kelly stepped closer, her voice trembling with intensity. That's so reductive, Jason. You can hold on to your roots and still evolve. That's what real artists do. That's what real humans do. Jason stared at her for a long moment, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he unclipped his microphone, placed it on the chair, and walked off set. The studio was dead silent. Kelly stood frozen, watching him go, as the audience sat in stunned disbelief, knowing they had just witnessed one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. Kelly's voice cut through the tense air, sharp but trembling with conviction. You're acting like the only two options are to never change anything about how you think, or to completely abandon your roots. There's a whole middle ground, Jason. You can honor where you came from while also recognizing that not everyone's experience is the same as yours. You can celebrate your community without making other people feel like they're not welcome in it. Jason's jaw tightened. I'm not making anyone feel unwelcome, he shot back. I'm making music, period. If people want to project all kinds of meaning onto it that isn't there, that's their issue, not mine. But it is there, Kelly pressed, leaning forward. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. The symbolism, the language, the imagery, it's all there. You can say you didn't intend it all you want, but impact matters more than intent. When people tell you your work makes them feel a certain way, you don't just get to dismiss that. Jason's face hardened. So what do you want me to do, Kelly? You want me to apologize? You want me to say I was wrong? You want me to promise I'll make different music that you approve of? What exactly is the goal here? The goal, Kelly said, her voice rising, is for you to acknowledge that your platform comes with responsibility. The goal is for you to recognize that your words and images don't exist in a vacuum. The goal is for you to show even a tiny bit of willingness to consider perspectives outside your own echo chamber. Jason barked a laugh, his voice booming loud enough to reach the back of the studio. Echo chamber? You're calling my life, my community, my worldview an echo chamber, while you sit here in your Hollywood studio surrounded by people who all think exactly like you and lecture me about perspective? That's rich, Kelly, that's really rich. Kelly's composure cracked. I'm surrounded by people from all different backgrounds, Jason. My crew, my staff, my friends, they're diverse in every sense of the word. Can you say the same? When's the last time you had a real conversation with someone who doesn't share your exact worldview? Every day, Jason fired back. Every single day I interact with people from all over. My crew, my band, my fans, they come from everywhere. But the difference is, I don't see them as categories. Kelly, I don't sort them into groups and decide which ones deserve my consideration based on whether they fit your definition of marginalized or oppressed. Kelly looked stunned. That's not what I'm doing. Don't twist this into me being the close-minded one. I'm asking you to be accountable for your art, that's it. That's all I'm asking. No, Jason said flatly, his voice cold. You're asking me to conform. You're asking me to filter everything I create through your political lens. You're asking me to second-guess every word, every image, every note, to make sure it doesn't offend someone somewhere. That's not art, Kelly, that's propaganda. The word landed like a thunderclap. Kelly's mouth fell open. Propaganda? You think asking for empathy and inclusion is propaganda? I think, Jason said slowly, that telling artists they can only create work that aligns with one specific political or social viewpoint is the definition of propaganda. I think deciding which voices matter based on identity politics is propaganda, and I think this entire conversation has been an attempt to bully me into submission, and I'm not going to do it. Kelly shook her head, exasperated. Unbelievable. You're actually standing here turning yourself into the victim, when all I did was ask you to think about other people. I asked you to consider that your art might affect people in ways you haven't considered. Jason's tone softened slightly, but lost none of its weight. And I told you, I make art for the people who connect with it. I'm not responsible for how every person on the planet interprets my work. I'm not responsible for making sure everyone feels included in every song I write. That's not my job. Then what is your job? Kelly demanded. To just reinforce what people already believe? To never challenge anyone, including yourself? To make money off nostalgia and resentment without ever thinking about whether you're making the world better or worse? Jason's face darkened. You don't get to question my contribution to the world, Kelly. You don't know me. You don't know what I do, who I help, what I give back. You don't get to sit there and judge my entire existence based on one interview where you ambushed me with your politics. This isn't politics, Kelly shouted back. This is basic human decency. This is about treating people with respect and dignity. If you think that's political, then yeah, we have a fundamental problem here. Jason reached down and unclipped his microphone, the gesture slow and deliberate. You're right, he said. We do have a fundamental problem. The problem is you invited me here under false pretenses. You made this personal. You attacked my character, my values, my integrity, and I'm done. Jason, don't do this, Kelly pleaded, reaching out as he stood. Don't walk away just because it got uncomfortable. That's the problem. You can dish it out, but you can't take it. Jason looked at her, his expression filled with anger and disappointment. I can take plenty, Kelly. What I can't take is being disrespected by someone I thought understood what it means to stay true to yourself. I was wrong about you. Kelly's face flushed. You were wrong about me. I'm not the one refusing to self-reflect. I'm not the one who can't handle being asked to think about the consequences of my work. Jason exhaled sharply. Consequences, impact, responsibility. Those are just code words for I don't approve of you and I want you to change. Well, guess what, Kelly? I don't need your approval. I never did. Kelly's hands trembled slightly, her voice shaking between fury and heartbreak. This isn't about approval, Jason. It's about being a decent human being who understands that we live in a diverse world and that our actions affect others. Why is that so hard for you to accept? Jason's voice cut through hers, calm but final. Because you're not asking me to recognize anything. You're demanding that I see the world exactly the way you do. And when I won't, you treat me like a monster. You're not interested in dialogue, Kelly. You're interested in conformity. The audience sat frozen, watching the exchange unravel in real time, half of them visibly uncomfortable, the other half unable to look away, as Jason Aldean turned and walked off the stage, leaving Kelly standing there in stunned silence. A few audience members had their phones out despite the strict no recording rule, sensing they were witnessing a moment that would dominate headlines and social media for weeks. Kelly Clarkson took a slow breath, visibly struggling to steady herself. Jason, she said carefully, I'm trying to have a dialogue with you. But dialogue requires both people to be open to hearing each other. You've been defensive since the first real question I asked. Defensive? Jason shot back, his voice rising. You came at me with accusations disguised as questions. You told me my music was divisive, that it made people feel unsafe, that I wasn't thinking about my impact. How exactly was I supposed to respond to that? With gratitude, Kelly replied, her tone even but firm. With honesty. With a willingness to consider that maybe, just maybe, there's some truth in what I'm saying. But instead you immediately went on the attack, acting like I'm the enemy just because I dared to challenge you. Jason shook his head slowly. You're not the enemy, Kelly. You're just someone who's forgotten what conviction feels like. Someone so worried about offending people that you've lost sight of what really matters. Kelly's eyes narrowed. And what actually matters, Jason? Your ability to say whatever you want without consequence. Your right to ignore how your words affect people. Your freedom to profit off division while pretending you're just an innocent artist. Jason's tone dropped to a low, controlled intensity. What matters, he said, is truth. Authenticity. Not bending yourself into whatever shape people demand you take. I make music that's real, that comes from the heart, that speaks to real experiences. If that's not good enough for you, if that makes me a bad person in your eyes, then we have nothing left to talk about. Kelly stepped closer, her voice passionate. Truth and authenticity don't give you a free pass to hurt people, Jason. They don't excuse you from basic empathy. You can be authentic and still be wrong. You can be truthful about your experience and still blind to how that truth lands for others. Jason countered without hesitation. And you can be so careful, so calculated, so terrified of saying the wrong thing that you lose sight of who you really are. Is that what you call growth, Kelly? Is that what you think makes someone better? Kelly's voice cracked slightly, emotion breaking through. Growth looks like admitting when you're wrong. It looks like listening to people who are hurt by your actions and taking that seriously instead of dismissing it. Growth looks like being willing to evolve beyond what's comfortable. And yes, Jason, sometimes that means being careful with your words because you understand they have power. Jason gave a bitter laugh. My words do have power. That's exactly why I'm not going to let anyone, including you, tell me what I can or can't say. That's why I won't apologize for speaking my truth. And that's why I'm leaving right now. Because this stopped being an interview a long time ago. This turned into an interrogation. He turned toward the exit, still holding his microphone. Jason, Kelly called after him, her voice breaking into desperation. Please just sit back down. Let's finish this conversation like adults. Jason turned to face her again, his expression softer but heavy with disappointment. Kelly, we're not having a conversation. We haven't been having one this whole time. You came in with an agenda. Nothing I could have said would have changed that. You wanted me to be the villain in your story, and when I wouldn't play along, you got angry. That's not dialogue. That's theater. Kelly's face fell, pain flickering across it before her defenses returned. That's not fair, she snapped. I came into this wanting a real talk about real issues. You're the one who couldn't handle it. You're the one who turned it into a fight. Jason gave a disbelieving laugh. I turned it into a fight? Kelly, you started this by calling my work divisive. You questioned my character, my values, my integrity. You did everything but call me a bigot outright. And now you're shocked that I won't just smile and take it? I never called you a bigot, Kelly said sharply. I asked you to think critically about your impact. There's a difference. Not to me, there isn't, Jason replied coldly. When you question someone's impact the way you did, when you use words like safety, inclusion, and harm, you're making an accusation. You can dress it up however you want, but that's what it is. And I don't have to sit here and take it. Kelly's voice softened, dangerously quiet. So that's it? You're just going to walk out? Prove everyone right who says you can't handle criticism? Jason laughed again, but this time it sounded bitter, hollow. Criticism. If you'd said, hey Jason, let's talk about this lyric or image, that would be criticism. What you did was make sweeping judgments about who I am as a person. That's not criticism, that's condemnation. Kelly's patience finally snapped. It's only condemnation if you refuse to engage with it. If you actually listened instead of reacting, you'd see I'm trying to help you, trying to get you to see perspectives you're missing. I don't need your help. Kelly, Jason said, his tone flat and final. I just need you to respect that I see the world differently, and that doesn't make me wrong or dangerous or responsible for how other people interpret my work. Artists don't all have to think the same way or make the same kind of art. Kelly's voice trembled now, her eyes bright with a mix of anger and hurt. Nobody's asking you to think like everyone else. I'm just asking you to think about other people, to consider voices that aren't your own. Is that really so much to ask? When it comes with the implication that I'm a bad person if I don't, Jason said quietly. Yeah, Kelly, that's too much to ask. His next words carried the weight of finality. I'm done here. I'm done with this interview. I'm done being made to feel like I have to defend my right to exist as an artist. He began walking toward the stage exit. Crew members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to stop him or let him go. Kelly stood frozen, her hands limp at her sides, torn between chasing after him and letting him walk away. Jason, she called one last time, her voice breaking. This isn't how this was supposed to go. Jason stopped at the edge of the stage but didn't turn around. Then maybe, he said quietly, you should have thought about that before using your platform to take me down. He hesitated for a moment, then added, I respected you, Kelly. I really did. But this was beneath you. And with that, he walked off stage. The cameras followed as far as they could before he disappeared into the wings. Kelly stood motionless under the bright studio lights, her expression a mix of shock, sadness, and disbelief. The audience sat in stunned silence, the only sound the faint hum of the lights and the echo of Jason's retreating footsteps. Finally, Kelly turned to face the crowd, her voice trembling as she tried to regain composure. I don't even know what to say right now. She forced a weak smile. So what do you think? Was I right to push Jason on these questions, or did I cross a line? Was he justified in walking out, or should he have stayed and talked it through? She looked straight into the camera. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our coverage of the biggest moments in entertainment. But here's the real question. If you were in Jason's position, would you have walked out? Or stayed and fought back even harder?